Welcome, everybody. How's everybody doing tonight? I'm so excited to be here with you guys. Thank you so much. I see 7 people are here. I'm in Orlando, Florida tonight. I asked in the comments where you guys are from. So go ahead and comment that and let me know where you're from. As always, guide my conversation. Tonight is just going to be me. So if you guys don't guide the conversation, it'll be just a talking head for a pretty long time, which I don't think is very fun. But you're welcome to join me tonight on the podcast. You can go ahead and click that link that I just shared, and I'll bring you live with me. But tonight's topic in general, we want to talk about. Sorry, my daughter's video is popping up here. I want to talk about with the audience tonight about competition, right? And really this term that I see getting used a lot and what's going on in the industry. And I kind of want to get your guys' perception of what competition is versus, I guess, my perception and what I believe it is. And I want to kind of give you guys some of the insights that I hear a lot about when it comes to between labor companies and business owners about what they think is competition and kind of how competition is a funny place to be in, right? Because what ends up happening is you kind of get this tunnel vision in this competition mode with your with the other people that you're working with, right? You get this little tunnel vision and you start focusing on the actual competition of what's going on versus the big goal of what you're doing, right? And one of the things that is really important about this topic tonight is that there is this fine line in competition that I think we are taught through movies, right? We're taught that competition is kind of this good versus evil, or in sports we're taught, first place versus second place. But when it comes to the business side of things, when it comes to that type of competition, really the only person you're competing with is not necessarily the person next to you, because they can become an ally, right? And and I'm not saying competition is bad. Let's start off with that too, right? I'm not saying competition is bad. If you have somebody that you work with who you respect and appreciate as a coworker, and they continually push you to elevate yourself, right? That is healthy, good competition. What I'm talking about is that unhealthy competition where you are just trying to beat out that person constantly over and over and over and trying to one-up them in a particular scenario. That is not useful for anybody, including for the industry. And a particular scenario I'm talking about is between a couple people that I saw recently, and they have it's toxic. It's very toxic relationship. I don't know how well they are outside of that environment, but it's a toxic relationship. And what ends up happening is that it was very focused on that kind of childhood mentality, right? Where I'm always one-upping you, right? Oh, you did this. I did this. Oh, I did a Zoom meeting. I did a Zoom meeting with 10,000. You did 5,000, or and then it becomes, well, what's factual and what's not factual at that point, and what's really going on in your minds when you guys are doing this? Because are you just taking work only to compete with that person? Are you actually learning and growing from that? One of the greatest things I could say about my career is I had a mentor named Mark Duffy. Tons of respect for this gentleman. He is a grumpy old video engineer, grumpy old man. But I took his advice and wisdom and took all the feedback as a positive to improve, and it did help me improve a lot in the industry. And I think that's healthy kind of competition, right? Because I wanted to compete against him so I could be at his level. I didn't want to be better than him. I wanted to be at his level and do better down the road. But he never treated me in a way that I needed to be like, oh, I can't make this. I can't make it to this level, right? Because that wasn't a thing. So that's kind of clarifying competition, right? There's a healthy version of competition, which actually helps you improve in your career. And there's the other side of this competition where it is only this toxic environment where you kind of are getting this tunnel vision and you're just trying to one-up each other. So real quick, I want to go to their comments here. I also see we have someone just popped in here. Tim K, which just popped in, which I'll bring you up in a second. So real quick, Rob had mentioned here early career. Other video guys, mid-career. Just video guys better than me, late career. Other small companies that have shows that I wish I had sold. All right, you're talking about every lunch conversation with stagehands. So there we go. So apparently Rob's saying you're talking about every lunch conversation with stagehands. I won't say that wasn't what the conversation was, but it was similar to that. And it was based, most of it was about a Zoom thing and how one, I did more, and then apparently the more they talked, the more shows they had barely did with Zoom. And it's kind of like, did you guys really do all those? Because it seems like every time one says a number, you come up with another number. So, what's the case here? But I'm rambling on here, right? I've been rambling for about 6 minutes. Let me bring in Tim K here, who adds some insight into some change of scenery and a much better face for you guys to look at tonight. Tim, how you doing, brother?
Hey, thanks, Omar. How you doing?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
Doing good. I apologize. I will have to run in about 20 minutes. I have rehearsal. So we're doing some testing with a relatively new platform to the market called Bettercast. Getting off
Okay,
topic here, but they're an Australian company, and we're
nice.
working on a show for next week, and we're doing some client testing with that tonight. But on the front of competition, I mean, I think. It's funny, Rob's comment about kind of the career progression, and I was going to say the same thing. Really, you know, um, the ways that I've conceived of competition and who my competition is and how I relate to that, in the marketplace has definitely evolved. Even over the last couple of years, as I've really cemented my roles and places in the marketplace, and so both. I mean, I'm a freelancer, but I'm also a production company owner. And so, looking at it from a producer side, I'm seeing, Rob, right, that like, the shows that I wish I'd sold, and looking at the companies whose shows I'm winning or the companies who are getting the shows that I want, and that back and forth competition. But I think that's, healthy part of business is figuring out, what are our peers doing better than us and how are they getting the work that we want to do, and then how do we, in an honest and forthright business way, earn that business or similar business. But as a freelancer, I mean, I think, I really look at, what you're doing, Omar, with AV Educate, and look at kind of the growth of the industry as a whole and the great deal of growth and change that we've had over the last, 12, 18 months, as a sign that, I think in many ways a rising tide does raise all boats. So I know that's kind of a platitude, but I think that there is plenty of work to go around in our industry. And I look at when I see people that I worked with a long time ago, posting on Facebook and things like that, as watching their careers grow, it's really interesting to see as I've mapped my own career trajectory over the last, 5, 10 years, hearing other people say, hey, I've been watching you over the last 5 years, 10 years, and seeing the people call out the progress that I've made in my career. It's really interesting to reflect on that, what other people are seeing in me, and then seeing that in my peers, right? And seeing that in the people that I've worked with for a long time, or people who are coming into the industry now, and watching that growth of not only individual people that I have relationships with, but growth of the industry as a whole, and the changing landscape of, rental partners and production companies, and, how various parts of the industry have evolved. And I think it's really interesting to look at that and see, some of these companies, right, are companies that I'm bidding against for work, but I think it's really heartening to see the industry growing so quickly and the amount of work there is right now in the video space particularly. I recognize our brothers and sisters in sound and lighting are still fighting to come back and grow, but I think the concert market is mostly back, but I know that a lot of
Yeah,
those
yeah.
folks are still, trying to find the work. But for us in video, I mean, it's as far as I can tell, hotter than it's ever been in my career in terms of the market. And so I look at it as not so much who am I competing with for work, but how do we align the work that we're all doing to our skill sets, right? How do I find my partners and peers and referral partners for the kinds of things that I'm good at, and make sure people know what kinds of work I'm looking for, but also how do I make sure that other people who are in the industry who are good at things that are different from what I'm good at, how do I make sure that I'm sending them the work that I'm not able to take or that I'm not the best fit for. And one of the things that I'm looking at right now is, there's so much work to go around that I can't take everything that I'm being asked to do. And so I'm really thinking about, how do we as an industry, build those networks, and this is part of it, right? These conversations are part of it, but how do we make sure that we have those friends and partners? So when somebody calls and says, I need help tomorrow, who are you calling? And
Right.
I had that come up. I mean, I was short stagehands for a show recently, just like last week, and I needed 4 hands, and I was it's like 24 hours to show, and I was able to call on a trusted friend and partner and another AV company, right, and they were able to find literally 4 guys off their show. They're like, you four, you're working tomorrow, and
That's awesome.
and I got them, spun up for my show. But it was, it's those relationships where this company does very similar work to me, but I hire them, they hire me, and it's something where I think it's they're in the same market. They're all in Sacramento, California, but we're not really competition. We're really, peers in the industry and helping each other make the industry good, and helping each other because we sell different kinds of shows. And so the kinds of shows that I bring them in on are different from the shows they necessarily sell directly. And so, we all have our clients and, building the industry up and making sure that we're taking care of those people in the industry who are there supporting us, I think is a much healthier way to sort of conceive of the industry versus, like butting heads, we're competing. I think, in many ways there are companies obviously that, I'm directly competing for work for, and not necessarily freelancers, but like for end client work for, as a production company that I'm, bidding against on projects. But, they're certainly, my competition on those projects, but I don't necessarily think that, the market is too small for us all to exist, peacefully. I think that, it's a bummer when I lose a show to someone else, but, the reality is, there's more shows in the pipeline and, these companies that are bidding against me on these shows are bidding because they're good at what they do, right? They're producing good work. And so it's really, what's the best fit for the client on a show by show basis. So I try really hard. I used to look at some of these other companies and even other techs as, competing for work. And I've really had to actively, consciously reconceive of that as, really looking at partnerships in the industry instead of competition, and looking at even techs who are doing the kind of work that I want to do, really thinking about that as not, why did they get this job over me, but more, what are they good at and how can I make sure I'm good at those same things? Or how can I make sure that they know I'm good at these other things that complement their skill set so that they'll bring me in as a complement and not to, fight over the same jobs.
Tim, you nailed it. Honestly, so I made some notes here, right, while we were talking, right? I'm a note taker. Yeah. So here's the first two things I'll go on because I know you're on a time frame here. So if anybody wants to comment on this, this is Laura. She says this is a great way to build relationships, right? Which is what I'm going to get to right now. Laura's already reading my mind. So you said sending work to colleagues, right? That brings up a very good point where there are people, and I didn't even think of it this way, right? Which is just why I love doing these live. There are people that I used to work with or compete with essentially for work that I am now relying on and vice versa for work because I know that they're at the skill level I need them to be at, or I'm at theirs, so they're able to give me work. And what you said was on point, right? Like now, instead of seeing this competition, this guy could be your resource and an ally to help you build your business or to help you vice versa get work and send work to, right?
Totally.
Because the other thing too is we have to remember in this industry, it's very word of mouth. And if I recommend you and you do a bad job, it also reflects on me.
Totally.
And vice versa. Yeah.
Totally.
And then on the business standpoint of this, which is great that you're here, on the business standpoint of this, me in the position I'm in now as a director here with Evolve and as I was in APC, I have directly, and I'll, if people haven't realized this, I competed with my own father's company. And I've talked to my dad about this, that dinner. Oh yeah, I saw your stuff. Yeah, no, that wasn't, we beat you because of this. Like, we've had conversations, right?
Yeah.
And he understands it's business. There's tons of work. He lost a bit, whatever. But the conversation isn't like, oh, that's messed up. You took job from me. Like, no, it was like, well, what'd you guys do? Okay, well, this is what we did. And we talked about it and it became this learning experience about for the next show, right?
It's what did you do to earn that work that I should be doing next time? How can you're beating me on this project make me better? And maybe it was price. I mean, maybe it was, your rentals are cheaper than mine. So, I can't win. I could have scaled back the show, but if it was a line item to line item, you were going to win. But if it was on skill sets or show design or something that is, less tangible than the spreadsheet, or maybe I over-engineered the show, right? And the client's like, I don't need all this gear. I can do it with less. So the whole show's going to cost. It's like, well, I could have sold that show instead, but the show I tried to sell was over-engineered, and so, what was that communication breakdown? What did you hear from the client that made you think that, that was the show to sell versus what did I hear from the client that made me think it needed, and so really what was that communication breakdown between me and the client that made me misengineer the show? And so looking at it as not so much, like, how did you take that work from me? Because it it wasn't my work to own, right? It's the client's project, but what could I do better, whether for this client, and maybe I'm not going to get this client back, but what are the lessons learned? And I try really hard to think about every show, no matter how good or how not good it goes, right? What is my number one takeaway, my lesson learned from that show? And it's not in front of me because it's packed. I'm doing a show, leading for a show tonight, so I've packed it up. But I have a notebook, right? And it's like a journal, right? And I write down, what happened on the show, what lessons did I learn, and I really try to distill for myself what, no matter what happened, even if the show went perfectly, was there something I learned, some tech showed me a trick, some, better way to set something up in the E2, some, cool application for like copying files off, something like Hedge, right? Something I learned from like a cinematography folks that I didn't know about, but like things like Hedge that are designed for duplicating files, right? And I ended up using that on the next show out, to do DIT work. And so what are the kinds of tools and technologies that are going to make my life easier, or what are the mistakes I made? What did I mess up that caused a problem? And, maybe somebody else had to fix a problem that I caused. And so what did I learn from that person about what not to do next time? And I try to be very careful about defining every show, successful, traumatic, as a learning opportunity. And what are the really specific takeaways that I can say, this is the thing that I learned today, or this is the relationship that I built today. And I want to always take something away from a show because, of course, that saying in our industry that you're only as good as your last show. Hopefully we don't have shows that go south. Hopefully we learn lessons through solved problems before the show starts, and not through mistakes, through mistakes the client knows about. But I think that key lesson of like every show is an opportunity to do the next show better. And so when we're looking at things like competing over work, what are the things that my production partners taught me when I subbed things out? What are the things that my client, when I'm working for other AV companies, taught me? This workflow. And one of the powers of being a freelancer is it makes me a better producer because I get to be a fly on the wall on other companies' production workflows, and I get to see how they build their documentation, how they manage their crews, what are their production workflows. So I get to see a who's who list of system engineers and system plans, and see how are people entering shows differently. And then when you combine that with all of the Facebook groups and the Discord servers and the discussions that are happening about real productions happening all the time that we get to be part of and a fly on the wall for, every time someone posts a bug or a troubleshooting question on a Facebook forum, I'm like, remember that for next time, Tim. That's going to come. You're going to run into this problem. Remember it for later. And so just kind of those mental notes. But when it comes to competition and when it comes to as a freelancer, and I think most of the audience for this show is freelancers, what are the things that we can learn from each other in the industry, and not looking at it as Omar, you got a show that I wanted, but how can I look at it as Omar's networking and building contacts and building skills, and how do I make sure that I'm also networking and building contacts and building skills? Because you've got your client base. Obviously you have a job now, but you've got your client base and your work, and I have mine, and obviously there's so much growth in the industry right now. How do we find those openings and opportunities? And I see Christopher says, right, that if you're learning something every show, you're getting better, and if you're not, you're getting complacent. And obviously, you talk about doing what you love. Right, we all do this. This work is crazy and long hours and a lot of work, and we wouldn't do this if we didn't love it. And I think to Christopher's point, this is definitely an industry that you get into because you're passionate about it, because you like to see the magic happen, to be a part of making magic happen. And I think what we do is pretty much the closest thing that there is to making magic. Laura, every loss is an opportunity to grow, so we're better next time. And every time that we have a mistake, every time that we lose a show, every time we see someone else's work on Facebook or something like that, when we're allowed to post about shows online, and we see somebody post and I'm like, I'm jealous I'm not on that show. I try to remind myself, that's a really cool show and I'd love to be a part of it, but what can I do to get to that point that those are my clients? And thinking about, who are my clients now, both as a freelancer and as a producer, who are, the people that I'm referring work to and getting work from. And, how do I really get to those places where the kind of work, the kind of end clients and the kind of freelance clients that I want to have are? And obviously, sometimes it comes down to the one time somebody's sick or the one time somebody's in a bind and just calls and you answer the phone and you're available and you're on a plane the next morning. Sometimes that happens. And, I told you about the story where I was last week, needed 4 stagehands, and I just called and 4 people were available and they showed up. And, certainly they're on my list now, right? I'm going to call them all the time because they were all amazing. And, it's those kind of serendipitous moments where our networks pan out and we get that referral. And as Omar said, right, you're only, when you refer someone, you're putting your reputation behind them. But when those referrals do pan out and somebody comes through, and you're not going to forget that that moment of relief that I felt on the morning of the show when these 4 guys showed up that didn't even know the show was happening 24 hours earlier, and I knew that the show was going to happen. As a producer, that was such a relief to see people show up and put their gloves on and unload a truck. It meant that show was going to happen and that I wasn't on the hook for a show that couldn't happen, right? It was a huge amount of pressure on me to make that show happen because of stagehands, and they came through and made the show happen. So I owe a huge debt to these 4 guys who I called 24 hours out and were able to come. So as an industry, every person and building block matters to the success of the show. And so I think as we look at competition versus camaraderie, I think looking at, as you said, Omar, somebody that we might have been seeing as competition in the past is someone that tomorrow might be the pivotal key to the success of a project.
Yeah, and I just want to reiterate here one key thing that you had said that I want to make sure the audience is paying attention to, right? You had mentioned these 4 guys that you called and they blew it out the water, and now you have the information content, right? And it's that they had this one moment, this one time to impress you, right? And it's all it takes is that one moment, that one time you came and did your job well. Now you have a new person for life, right? That you're going to call.
Exactly. Totally. And like I said, it was these guys who showed up. They were, really ready to work, and they were just, excited, to have a new project. It was,
Sure.
not too hard of a show, but, I think having, as you said, the fact that they, in a moment of need, made a great impression on me and really, honestly, like they could have been way less good and I would have been fine because I just needed the show to happen. And they were all great. They all did, exactly what I needed them to do and really had the skills and, and demeanor to make the show happen well. And so, it's something where, if I need, I should say when, I will absolutely need, those positions again, they're on my list to call because, I know they're going to come through. And as you said, we all have that one moment to impress. That last show is that impression on somebody. And so as we think about, what is the impression we're going to leave with everyone on this show today? And as you said, Omar, right? People that we talked to a while ago kind of come back into our life. This industry is so small.
Yep.
And we all know somebody who knows somebody who knows you. So, it's 2 to 3 degrees of separation between all of us. And so,
100%.
It's that, if I call for a referral and somebody says, try this person, I say, oh, I remember, he saved my show, right? I'm going to call him, right? When somebody says, hey, try this, this video engineer. I'm like, oh yeah, I worked with her 4 years ago, when she was a graphics op, but she was great. And I saw recently on LinkedIn that, she just got her Barco cert. So yeah, I'll call her, when somebody calls and says, try this person, I'll be like, last time I worked with him, like, not good. I'm not going to call him.
We all have that one person like, oh, I don't.
I mean, I've definitely gotten to that part of the list where I'm like, well, everyone else said no, so we'll try this one.
Yeah.
But it's that second chance. You got to be pretty deep into the list before I start giving people second chances.
Oh, no, I definitely, as soon as you said that, there was somebody came to mind. That's why I'm laughing so hard. I'm like, I've had that moment, and like you're saying, I had the call, and I was like, listen, if you put them like in a breakout in the far room, we should be okay. Like, just don't let the client go there.
Right. No, and there's definitely those people that are like, well, he's a good tech. I just cannot let him in front of the client.
Which is a tricky scenario, right? Because a lot of times it's like, I use the house scenario, right? If anyone's ever watched the series House back in the day, there are some techs that they're just that good. Like, this guy will solve anything. Just don't let him talk to the client, please.
Yeah.
And then your main role now becomes like the middleman. Like, oh, what do you need? I'll take care of it. Don't worry about it. And you go to the back. Hey, I need da 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 da.
Yeah.
Oh, what about blah, blah, blah? And you're like, I got you, bro. I'll be right back. Let me get answers. There's always that one.
I promise it's not you, Christopher. And Rob said his only competition is in-house AV, which I will have to let you, Omar, take because I've got to say goodbye. I got to go to rehearsal. Thanks all. See you later.
No, thanks for being here, Tim. Appreciate it. See you later. Yeah, so Tim, for real competition, in-house AV. So I used to be in-house AV. What I would say about that is honestly, most of the times you can beat them on price, right? And if you disagree, let me know. If you join me live here and you can debate me on that. But most of the time on pricing, we can beat in-house pretty easily. There are some clause sometimes between, that I have exclusivity for the breakout rooms and things like that. But generally speaking, I feel like most AV companies can win when it comes to pricing, essentially, right? And then also we can stipulate in our contract, like, hey, we're going to give you, and this obviously is changing a little bit, but you can say, I'm going to give you exactly what this contract says, not something else, right? And also, a lot of times when I'm having these debates between in-house AV versus the company, and I'm getting these kind of back and forth between pricing because in-house wants to do this versus this, my main point goes, listen, this is what the prices are. We can go this far down. We won't go any lower than that. If you're confident the AV house can give you the price you want and do a better job, then by all means take it. I will say, and I learned this from my father, it's called having legacy clients, right? 9 times out of 10, the next year that client calls back saying, hey, we want to do that show again. We'd like to use you guys. We got it for this. And then it's like, well, I remember this show. Hey, we can do it for this. And then it comes that back and forth game again. And if it is that game, you either walk away at that point or they you know what, we have a little more we can do. Can we make this work that way? And that's what I've seen works really well when it comes to that kind of game back and forth. It is playing the long game. But again, it's you may or may not get it back, or another company might get it. But again, it's that pricing game. And when it starts to get too low and too far down, at some point, it's almost always better to just walk away and let somebody else handle that because you got bigger fish to fry. And again, I'm not saying I'm always been in that position because there are shows I've hunted for because that's the month I need to make. Whatever my residuals are on that show or my position is on that show, I need to hunt for it. So I need to push it, make it happen no matter what. And also seasons, right? Or is it summertime? Is it busy season? Is it during the school year? Things like that to think about, especially down here in South Florida. A lot of guys here in Florida too, they'll leave during the summer, go to Chicago, go to New York, go to California, work there for the summer, fly back down. There's actually someone I can't think of his name right now. He lives in Chicago. He kind of does the back and forth between the two. So, so those are the scenarios that I can think about here. I wanted to come back here real quick. I saw a couple things that I'd passed through here. I think one was from Rob. So Rob has said here, Omar is definitely our competition in terms of leading the way in almost any celebrity status among us all. My debate to that would be I try purposely to keep these as simple productions as possible. Keep the kind of bar entry level as low as possible, so that you guys who are watching this and want to do this, I'll tell you how to do it, and on top of that, I'm so confident in your guys' ability to do what I'm doing because you're technical guys and technical gals out there that can do this and just talk with your community, talk to your friends, bring them to our show or make your own show and post it on AV Educate. I won't even block it. Because I want you to do that. And that's the reason I do these shows at the level we do them at. It's the reason AV Tech Talks is the way it is. It's the reason the podcast is the way it is. It's because we want you guys to see that these can be fun, these can be enjoyable, these can be good conversations, and you can do the same thing. By all means, do it and share it to AV Educate. Let the community know about you guys. I've reached 10,000 people across all our social media channels. post it to us. We'll share it out there. We'll give it to the we'll give it to the community. The community's asking for it. If it's good enough, it'll sell itself essentially, right? So I implore you, if you think what we're doing is easy and you think what we do is fun, by all means, create an intro, create a countdown, get a restream, get a StreamYard, which is the two programs we use between the two programs. Get your friends together and start talking, right? It's that simple. We add a little bit of flair with it, with the live stuff. We try to keep it live, try to keep our time slots going so that no one does take our time slot at least. But I implore you guys, man, do it. This is fun. This is great. They're very educational comments. And for myself included, I love the feedback I get from the community. I love the live. I love that kind of spontaneity between what needs to be talked about versus what ends up getting talked about. That definitely drives me a little more too, because it keeps me on my toes, keeps me on my feet. I will say the only challenge to all this is the time commitment to family, to friends, to colleagues. This takes up a lot of time. Even when I'm on shows and I'm busy. Right now, I'm driving to Atlanta. I stopped at the office in Orlando on my way up because I had to do a show with you guys. So I have to stay committed. That is probably the only difficult parts about the whole thing. But I promise you it is worth it. It is fun. And you are more than welcome 100% to share the content on AV Educate as long as it's educational for the community. I will not stop it. I will let it go and promote you as best as I can because this is honestly fun and I like having it. And obviously I can only talk to as many people as I meet out there. So the more I get to meet, the more I get to talk to, the more interesting these conversations can get. But yeah, I appreciate that, Rob, in general. Rob and me just did a show together recently. We've been longtime colleagues, but we finally got to do a show after much back and forth. So that was really cool. A couple things are coming in here as well. So let's see. We got another comment here from Rob again. So Rob says, I remember in the beginning a tech competition for respect and crew that I was new to. I remember that in the beginning of being a tech competing for respect and crews that I was new to. Okay, I get that. I'm hoping that now moving forward, and I will give some credit to anybody who knows Noah the Beard Tanner. One of my missions in AV Educate has been kind of that, and Laura had said something to that effect earlier in the show here. She had said, every loss can be seen as an opportunity to learn and grow, so we're better next time. What I would change about this, and what one of my goals is about everything we're doing here, is that every failed attempt at something is an opportunity to educate somebody. And the reason I say it that way is because one of my goals with AV Tech Talks and with the podcast is to show the community and the industry that these are learning moments. These are opportunities for us to learn and teach each other. There's never a bad time for that, right? Obviously, the pandemic made it easier for us timing-wise to get things rolling, get things started. Now that we're all getting busy and everything, it's been a little bit more difficult to do that. But the reality is that this is, I would like to say, has helped a lot of people. I've gotten feedback that has helped a lot of people. But in addition to that, what's really been interesting about everything that we're doing is that I have seen for myself, including Noah, that people are more inclined to help when people need to struggle versus that older mentality a couple of years ago where it was just the, oh, you don't know this, don't worry, I'll take over this. Or you don't know anything, go pull some cables for me. Now it's been like, hey, let me teach you a little bit here so you can work a little faster. And hopefully the next time I see you now you can do this. And again, you're essentially training your competition down the road, right? But they're not going to get there in a couple of years, and they're not going to get there overnight. They're going to get there over time, okay? And if you're a mentor to them, they're going to also help you and increase you. I think this is one of the industries where, especially in corporate AV, right? I can't speak for some of the other ones because I don't know, but corporate AV, live events, installation, I think this is one of the industries where when you mentor somebody, you help somebody, that comes back to you in return from that person, right? Because they know and they trust you. Say, hey, I got this big show coming up. I can't really do it. I don't feel confident in it. I'm going to give it to you, right? Or vice versa. Hey, I got something coming up. I can't really do it. I'm really busy. Call this guy because he's kind of who I've been training up right now. And that effect also increases or decreases your value in the industry, right? So if you have somebody that you trust to replace you on a show, that trust becomes the client's trust now. Like, oh, you recommend this person? I trust you. I got you. They do a good job. They look good. You look good. The client looks good. You're still in good graces with everybody across the board. And again, this is still like your competition down the road, right? Because he's taking work from you. He's taking clients from you potentially because now like, well, this guy's a little bit cheaper. He does just as good as what I need, X, Y, Z. But there'll be times where, hey, I got a big show coming up. They need a lead guy. Do you want to take that position? He'll call you back for stuff, right? Or vice versa. So there is this kind of competition that is friendlier now, or at least I'm hoping is, as we move forward in the industry. That was my 2 cents for that. Let's see what we got going on here. Rob says, by the way, I'm not approving any of these. So I spoke just like an MLM. I can teach you to do exactly what I do. True that. Christopher Brown, Rob White, 100%. I'm always in the competition for respect of the crews I work with to show them. So yeah, so Chris is in a unique scenario, right? Chris came from a different background, completely different, about a year ago, and he's shifted over from very IT mindset, very kind of in a Twitch community, kind of a gamer. Used to work for pools and plumbing and stuff like that with the county and then with the company. Transitioned over to our industry, learned a lot about vMix, learned a lot about video. Took what he knew from the streaming world, right? And it was like, hey, I know all this streaming knowledge between all these platforms. How can I use that to my advantage? Well, here's a little education on vMix. He learned a bunch of stuff on vMix, learned a bunch of stuff, got on a bunch of shows with it. And then through a mentorship, he got his own show and his own clients and his own work. The other part that he was missing, the newer part, right, the streaming part of it, he was doing that as a hobby his whole life. He was already doing stuff like that with Twitch. He was already doing stuff with gaming. He was already doing that stuff with his network, with the city. He was doing that with his company, helping on the IT department because he knew all that stuff, right? So it was taking little things here and transitioning to where they need to go, and that's really where it comes down to when it comes to him being this new guy no one knows of yet, that this isn't a familiar face, but coming in there, doing these shows, executing them properly, having no issues, getting callbacks from the clients, and showing like, hey, I'm competent. I'm not just filling a slot here at this position, right? I hope I'm making you look gold, brother. Listen, I don't get too many complaints, Chris. You're making me look good. So Chris is my newest. If you guys know Mike Leitchen or Christopher Brown, those would be my two kind of guys. Mike Leitchen is the lighting guy that I taught video to. Christopher Brown is an IT guy that I taught video to, and they're both doing great in the industry. They're both doing big things. Mike Leitchen has his own company now. He's doing bigger and better things every day. Chris just started his own company. He's doing bigger, better things every day. Definitely taking what took me years to master, business side, take that knowledge. I put it on him. He's executing it, moving through with it. He's doing fantastic as far as I can tell, outside looking in. But I haven't got any angry calls from their wives, so I assume it's doing good for everybody involved. Laura here is saying, as a producer, I will 100% hire someone new to me if someone I trust like Omar recommended them. Build those relationships across the board. So again, someone who's on the producer side who has to rely on that word of mouth, right? And this is double-edged sword, because if Laura's a client of yours and you do a lot of shows with her, and Laura does a lot of amazing shows, especially in the virtual realm, and you recommend to her somebody and it doesn't do well, that reflects bad on you and bad on the person that you hired. And yes, will you get hired from that person again? Maybe Laura might call you back. She might be a little longer now because you put her in a bad spot. The other person, probably not so much. But now there is this seed, right? This seed has been planted in that person's mind that, you know what? Omar's a good operator. His referrals aren't so good. So let me not go that route. So then now what happens, right? And I hope everybody's doing this, by the way. If you're getting work and you can't do it, I highly recommend you first recommend somebody that you trust to do that job versus just saying you can't do it. I think that is a big turnoff to that client reaching out to you, because what happens to me a lot of times, and why a lot of times I refer stuff to Chris or to Mike or to the Discord community, is I get a lot of calls because I will refer somebody that I trust for that position once I get information. Like, hey, you know what? I know this guy's pretty good at this. And if not, hey, I'll put it in my community and you let me know if someone contacts you. And I'll tell them straight up, hey, I know this person through here, or I'll tell them what the deal is. And I'll be honest with my clients. But I always try to refer someone directly first, so they know, let me call the one more, because if he can't do it, at least he'll give me someone who can. And that puts me in a good position with my clients and with my colleagues, and vice versa. Those people that I refer to now frequently will also say, hey, I can't do a job, but I got this one guy, and I'll get a call for that. Like, hey, Jack called you, or Chris recommended you, or Lewis recommended you, or I know tons of Lewises. I know 3 Lewises, but one of those guys recommended you for the show because I couldn't do it, or Trevor recommended you, or Isaac recommended you, because I do the same for them when they call me. So it becomes a double-edged thing, right? And again, these are essentially my competition that I'm working for and with, because now we foster relationships that help us both grow and continue our path moving forward. Dan Harley asked if I'm in Las Vegas today. I'm not, Dan, but I will be there next week. I'll be there actually next week at the end of the week. I'll be in Vegas. Robert says I'm in Orlando. Yep, I'm in Orlando right now, and after this, I'm driving to Atlanta. So stop just for you guys to talk for a little bit. We got about 20 minutes left here. I will, as I'm reading this stuff, I'm going to post a the invite link again. So if you guys want to join me on here and add some extra insights or anything like that, I still got a couple of notes we can dive into that Tim K brought to the table here before we had to excavate. I will say real quick, Austin Jackson was here with me at the beginning of the pre-stuff. He's in a hotel room, east side of Florida, and he was having some internet problems there, so we decided not to put him on because he wasn't able to, because it was getting drops in and out. So the internet at the hotel wasn't the best. So that's how that happened there. So anybody, again, this is the AVE podcast. You're welcome to jump on here at any time and just talk with me. There's no restriction for that. We don't restrict anybody from coming on here. You can come on here and change the conversation completely if you want to. But that's how we do things here. So Chris here says as well, bro, I came in, ran PTZs, vMix, PowerPoint, switches, and all. I was impressed with myself. Little pat on the back, all while operating vMix and monitoring 3 Zoom PCs. So I'll say this about Chris, and Chris, I don't mean to put you on blast. Chris's biggest problem, and I made a deal with him. I made a 3-month deal with Chris beginning of the year. And I said, quit your job. You hate your job. Nothing's going right there. Chris is a very close family member of mine. He's my brother. He's helped me through thick and thin. I said, listen, I can guarantee you X amount of dollars a month. And then in addition to whatever else you make, I'll help you make that. And then I guarantee you that after 3 months of you and me working together and mastering all this stuff, you will make that plus more every month moving forward. I made it very clear that that wouldn't be the case year round, that some months you'll make more, some months you'll make that, but you would never make less than this. And if you did, let me know, I'd make it right. So far, he's never let me know, so I've been okay. He's made more in 6 months than he did in a year at his old job. He's been doing phenomenal work. We've had numerous phone calls as well. Part of that whole mentorship thing, right, is we've had a bunch of calls about when something does go wrong or isn't working as well. You know, we go to troubleshooting scenarios. We could talk about one here there was PTZ cameras. We did some stuff with I think it was Bird Dog was the thing. And let me know if I'm wrong, but we did some stuff with Bird Dog. Apologize. We did some for Bird Dog, and I was like, is the dip switch right? Is the power them off at first, because Bird Dog, if you leave them on too long, they'll go from HTTP to static. Is the controller going this way? How far are the runs? Are you doing POV or direct power? All this stuff. The one thing I didn't think about, because I'm not an IT guy, right? So it's not always the first thing that's in a flow. He goes and he's like, oh, you know what? I checked all that. All that's good. It's still not working. He went and checked to the Ethernet line. I should have thought about that, right? That should have been one of the things that he thought about it. He put it in, found us the cable, swapped it out. Boom, everything worked. The only thing I could take credit on is that if he changed anything for resolution, if he changed anything for the power, if he changed anything for that he did that maybe helped out. I don't know, but we knew the problem ended up being this. And that was like 30 minutes of our time. And it was great because I got to learn something. He got to learn something. I went to the manual. I'm a big manual reader. I went to the manual, sent him pictures of what I was talking about, so he knew exactly what to look for. He said, yes, they were Bird Dogs. Thank you, Chris. So yeah, they were Bird Dogs. The issue was just, a confidence thing, right? And one of the things that I've been building with him is that you're confident. You don't need all this extra stuff you think you need. The industry that I'm in, needs talented guys who are doers, not bookworms or guys who have A++ certification from their IT university, whatever. If you know your stuff, you're able to explain it to somebody, you're able to help them figure out state and flow, and you're able to get it done, you'll be fine. And I think almost a year later, and he's still working and still doing work and has a consistent flow of clients and is feeding his family. All right, I think I did a pretty good job. So Chris says here, I read the entire manual. That's my boy. Before I called to see if I could figure it out. So there, even then, I sent him stuff that he was already knew about, which is probably why it was a 30-minute conversation, because I was like, you try this, you try this, you try this, because he probably already did it, and he read the manual. He was like, I already tried to let you. But again, I'm a big guy on manuals, and again, I'm training Chris, who is competition at this point. We're doing a lot of the same jobs. We have a lot of the same clients. We do a lot of the same things. But I'm still getting calls from my clients. I'm still getting calls from Chris. I'm still doing back and forth stuff with Chris all the time. We are in competition as far as what goes on, but I've learned stuff on the IT side from Chris. Chris has learned stuff on the video side from me. So it's a healthy competition. It's not toxic. I'm not trying to say, oh, I did a Tony show. What'd you do? Oh, you did some petty little Bacardi thing. No, man, good job. You did Bacardi show. That's awesome. Bacardi's great. Did you get a bottle? Did you hook up your brother? What's going on? That's what the conversations go with us. And then also, in addition to that, again, competition, right? I'll be remember Rafael Molta and me have done some disguise stuff. He's a competition. Rafael's an amazing video engineer, much more skilled than I am in disguise. I dove into, did some fundamental classes, did some stuff online. I actually sit down with him and do some stuff. He gladly let me sit with him and do some stuff. Same thing with my buddy Trevor with TriCaster. He got a TriCaster. He actually helped me out with paying for the TriCaster classes. I took the classes. I came to the studio. I did a bunch of hands-on stuff with him. This is the guy who owns it, runs it, operates it. He's like, yeah, you want to learn it? Let's learn it. I have clients that I got directly from him and vice versa. I have a show coming up with him as well because he is my competition, but also we are colleagues and we like to elevate each other. And I'm hoping that you guys are doing that out there in the industry. You're not just beating each other over, semantics of who's done bigger what or who's done X, Y, Z, or who's made more money than this or done more than that. I want to reiterate this: these are healthy competitions, right? Chris is saying here, you did things right, brother. I can't thank you enough for kicking me off that ledge, man. Yeah, and it's a leap of faith. It definitely took a lot. I pushed near the end because I saw how misery was. I hated coming over the house and hanging out with the kids and just seeing how bad it was. But I knew the risk. You got a family, you got a house, you got mortgage, kids, cars. It's not easy. But I'm glad we came to an agreement. We figured things out. Here he goes again. I'm more than happy to help anyone with anything I can. Need networking or computer information. If you miss anything, I'm here to help. I'm happy to help. Sorry. Chris says that to you guys who keep me out there. Man of his word too. Give him a call, text him, talk to him on his Twitch channel, communicate with him. He's always available. Again, this is somebody who I'm raising up in the industry as competition essentially, right? Because I need to do what I can do, and vice versa. He's raising me up because he's doing things that I can't do or that I need someone to call on. Another example is, I'm not an audio guy. Ed Wallach is a phenomenal audio and video guy. We do a lot of stuff together. We do a lot of communicating together. We do a lot of calls back and forth, a lot of, free stuff. Obviously there could be consulting fees for stuff, but we communicate a lot, and Ed is definitely competition. Now, he's in a different market, right? He's in New York. I'm in Florida, so it's not as obvious one. But we could do a lot of the same things. As far as audio goes, Ed beats me out the water for sure. He knows way more than me, could do way more than me. Hands down, never take that away from the guy. As far as video goes, we're confident in both things. He's got way more certifications than me. I'd love to shadow him one day and see his workflow. But again, he's competition, but I still respect him and compete with him, and he brings the best out of me, I bring the best out of him. And these are healthy competitions. So let me look at my notes real quick here. One thing that Tim had said, betting against companies, we talked a little bit about that. I will say one thing, if you're in that level, that project manager level, that PM position, TD position, or you're in that kind of position like Lara is, who's the director position, or operations position too, if you are competing with companies that you work with and you guys are having these open conversations about these things, obviously if you trust these guys and they trust you or these companies and you guys have a mutual respect for each other, what really comes down to is when I've done shows that I've won bids on, some of it comes down to, hey, I know that we can do this at this price range and do it really well. I know that you guys do this really well. Would you like to at least get a piece of the pie? Because I'd like to hire you for this portion because I know you guys will do it well, right? For example, I'm the director of education at Evolve. We're primarily a video company here, right? If I was in the bidding business and I was working on a bidding show, I would for sure want to do video because that's what we own, right? We don't bid for shows, by the way. We support shows. But if that was the case, I have a whole video department full of video gear. I can give great prices. Would I want to do the audio? No, I'd want to hire a company that I know does audio, that does it well, right? Who has acoustics, who has things like that, my buddy Lewis has a company that has a ton of acoustic stuff. Adam from AFPC has a bunch of acoustic stuff. Those are companies that I would reach out. Hey, I have this thing. Here's what we're going for rate wise. What can we add from your to get you a piece of that pie? Because that's not what I do. That's not my forte. And again, that's using competition to work together, right? That's not using competition to steal it. Now, where that could be tricky, right, is the client end, right? Oh, well, you start talking about client. That's just bad business. That's a different conversation than what we're talking about here. But this is using competition to your advantage. Another thing we talked about was, war stories. I think stagehands do this very well. They constantly are talking about these war stories, these different situations. I think these are great, and I'd love to do a show on this. If anyone's ever interested, DM me. I'd love to get like 10 people involved and just talk about war stories for like an hour, 2 hours. But what I think is really good about those is war stories become this very interactive dialogue where there is no competition, but just this, I did this wrong, oh, I should have done this, or you hear, oh man, I've been in that situation before, this was my solve. And now there's this new education. I think stagehands unwillingly do this constantly, So so like when you have a guy that's been doing it for 10 years, they're very quick to solve because they've heard all these scenarios, right? And I think the higher up you get in that echelon, you start getting into these like uh, specific positions, you start to lose some of that because you start only dealing with this one product over and over again, and you learn all the ins and outs of that product, and then newer things get created, and you lose some of that. But we got about 10 minutes left on the clock. I want to introduce Rob White, who just popped in with us, and get a different perspective of what's going on right now. So Rob White,
Do I need an introduction for real?
yeah, man, of course. This is the man, the Rob White. Welcome tonight from Orlando, Florida, Rob White.
Yeah, I don't even know what to say about this. Competition used to be a thing in our industry, and like you
For
said,
sure.
in the last like couple of years, it's kind of, especially after COVID, it just died out. I mean, we've like teamed together and worked out together now, and
Yeah.
but I mean, yeah, there is still some low hanging fruit that still likes to compete with everybody, but we all run into it. But I remember, like I said, when I was beginning as a tech, you just like it felt like you're fighting for the respect, and then you look back on it, you're like, well, shoot, I didn't know anything anyways. No wonder I didn't, nobody respected me. But
Right.
you thought you knew everything to a point, and then you learn that you don't know what you don't know, and then you're like, well, what don't I know? And then you get into the higher education stuff, and you want to learn, not just every piece of gear and all that, but and it's not just a competition in terms of like tech. It's also a competition, like you said, about in terms of you don't want to be just the guy who's a good tech. You want to be a good guy who's a good with clients as well. So you twist your whole education towards, okay, how do I become the whole word lately is a leader as well. And I mean, there's just so much to learn. I mean, you never stop. There's so much that you learn every day. And I'm not saying I know it all, because I don't. I'm way below a lot of the people that I say look up to. I look up to them, but at the same time, I feel like they're the same. I mean, like you and like for instance, Scott Monroe is I thought when I met him was just another tech, and then I realized that you don't know these people's stories. You don't know what they have been through. You don't know the mistakes that they've made and what they've learned in their life. And so, you think they're just another tech, or you think they're just, they're competition against you, against your work, trying to take your job or trying to take your positions. And they're not, you got to look past that and teach yourself. So, I mean, that's my take on it, but there's no competition.
That's great. But, and my add to that would be, who's not to say that someone you're competing with now to better yourself, right? And I'll use Chris as an example. Who's not to say in another 5 years, Chris and me work so much together that we just go into business together because we have a lot of similar clients. We're like, right? Who's not to say that? And I know audio guys. I know quite a few audio guys who they have partnerships with other freelancers because it's easier for them to manage their time and their inventory to do a partnership. Also, it's a little bit cheaper on insurance, a little bit cheaper on this for the business side of things. But I've seen those partnerships, and I also know a couple of video guys that have that because they're like, hey, we provide a service. I do the video, he does the audio. Together as a team, we work well.
That's what everybody knows OPAV as his big company, but when he got started, it was him and Jesse and Gustavo and a couple other guys, and they just teamed together. And I joined the team a couple times to be run the video part of it, but we didn't own all the gear. We were like, okay, what do we own? What can we sell? Hey, I have a show. I need this much video. I need this. You do all the lighting. You do all the audio, and you build up from there. And that's how a lot of little businesses turn into big businesses.
Yeah, no, and you bring up a great point there, right? So now it's like, let's say you get to that point where this competition becomes your colleagues, right? Now you're sharing in the expenses and you're sharing in the profits. So it's still that same model. Now you're just doing it all in-house. So now you have more control of what's in there, what's not in there. And you can also like say, hey, this year, let's focus on more of the audio stuff. You're the audio guy in the company. Let's lean on your expertise, right? Once you do that, like, hey, let's lean on lighting. Maybe we get a lighting guy who's got a lighting company. Tyler Lights is a great example, right? All lighting company. That's all he does. He's a great lighting engineer.
Yeah.
The company's all lighting.
They're like the food truck of lighting.
Right, exactly.
They're really good.
So Tyler, you call up a Tyler, like, hey, Tyler, you want to get in business with us? Let's say this OPV, for example. Yeah, I'll get in there. Now his warehouse cost goes down, his insurance cost goes down. He's got a bigger space to do stuff on. And like, hey, by the way,
yeah, I would love to see that more in our industry of co-ops happening. Like, for instance, my company, I still don't have a warehouse. I have no need for it, But
Right.
if I were to partner up with like an audio guy with a bunch of audio gear that does more, or a lighting guy, then we could pair up and do a warehouse and build up companies like that. And I'd like to see more companies like that, like Tim Durr paired up with like PRG or somebody, so he got warehouse space in their warehouse.
Oh,
And
nice.
I don't know when that was or if he's still there, but it's stuff like that instead of competition, like you said, it's just partnering.
Yep.
And you see that more and more now, less competition. So I was curious when I saw this talk. I was like, competition, like where'd that go? But it is still out there, but I haven't seen it very often.
It is, and I like that it's not as, like you're saying, it's not as prevalent anymore. I'm curious now that we say it out loud, though, is it because the technicians, because of the pandemic and COVID, have shifted in mindset, or is it because who's left in here are the ones that have that growth
I think it's
mindset?
a combination of both. I mean, there's less people, and especially now. I mean, like everybody I know who has a company or is trying to hire people, they're just, they say there is nobody, and I just wonder where everybody went. And all the guys I know, we're still doing it, but I know there's a whole slew of people I don't know, and I don't know if they're there or not. But who knows? But yeah, I think it's both.
I know, I get you. Yeah. So let me see if there's anything else I'm missing in my notes here. Partnerships in the industry, war stories. What can we learn from each other? Right. We've kind of gone over that. Freelancers agreed. Oh, that one-time moment, right, where it all takes that one time to kind of become that person for somebody. Sending work to colleagues, betting against companies, competing freelancers are now resources. I think we've kind of beat the gamut here, right? We've gone to all the way from one to the other, and we've covered everything.
I'm surprised you made a whole hour out of it. Yes.
Oh, I can talk now. A year ago I'd be like, I'm more of an action guy. A couple words and I'm done. Now I'm like, I can get going. But yeah, it's the idea came from Austin actually originally because of a scenario where we were in Orlando and we were on a show and we saw these two guys kind of bickering about Zoom numbers.
Oh yeah.
And it came off as, well, you guys just keep adding numbers. Like, are you even being? It's like, is this even a real conversation anymore? Or are you guys just trying to beat each other here, right? And it felt from the outside, right, like a very childish conversation.
Yeah.
Because it was like, well, I did Zoom with 6 breakouts. Well, I did a Zoom with 8 breakouts this one time. Like,
it's hard to I see those conversations at lunch tables during crew meals, and it's hard to watch because you see the guys who are just like itching to tell their story, and it's like,
yeah.
And like I said, I mean, everybody has a story, whether it's true or not. People just want to be heard.
Yeah,
so,
and for me it'd be, oh, you did 8. How'd you do it? How'd you wire it up? Was it in separate breakout rooms? Did you guys have it physically over?
I just pushed the boxes, man. I don't know.
Exactly. Then it's like, oh,
but
so
I
you
was
didn't
there.
Really do anything, right? You were just there.
Yeah.
I heard the Zoom operator talking about it, but I was helping him out. Okay.
I've seen pictures though of some of those where they have I don't know, like
the Zoom farms,
20 or 30 computers for each talk. Each person.
Yep.
And of course, you look at when Tony Robbins did the first Zoom wall where they did an LED wall with 200 people behind it and then everybody.
Yeah.
Now it's just I don't want to do that again.
So. Well, it's crazy, right? Because all it took was there was one post. One guy posted the wire diagram.
Pictures are viral, man.
Dude, and everybody saw it. Everybody copied it. And it was like, this is how you do it. You get Resloom, you get 10G ports, put all those into here, you put it in a layer, and you take that layer, and you throw it out there, and it's like, oh, it's that easy. And all of a sudden, everybody was doing it.
Dude, I mean, like this whole industry, like where we first started with COVID, we're like, okay, I thought, I was like, why is anybody going to hire me to do Zoom? You just log in, you just do it. And then, then you do, like you said, or Tim said, you do a show as a freelancer and you see somebody else do it and you're like, oh, I get it now. Okay. And
now it's like him, right?
Exactly. Just like him, I took it as well. It'd be like, this is what we can do. And then you're able to sell it because you've seen it. But that's the advantage of being a freelancer / business owner is you get to work with all these companies and see how they do things, and to the point where you work with some companies that are really good and you just wish that the two companies that are really good would work together, but it would never happen.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And no, that's a whole other thing. That's like
Yeah.
that's where
We'll
egos
talk
get
about the
involved.
competition between them. They won't do it. They're like, no, they're
Right.
my competition. They do the same. Why would I spend my all my energy to show another company how to be better, be in their eyes as good as me? And
Yep.
that's that company saying the same thing about this company. It's like, well, they're still always going to be.
Yeah, I just thought of two companies right now that
Yeah,
they
we all
do
have
everything
2 companies in
everything
mind.
in house. Yeah,
And they're
everything
both
in
great.
house.
They're both great companies, that you have in your head. But
So Rob, before we get out, we're 2 minutes past 9 o'clock. Before I let you go, any final words for the audience about competition and where you see the future of this industry?
well, the competition, just like everybody says when we're setting up or when we're running a show, guys, it's not a competition. It's teamwork. Let's just get together. Let's do the show. Let's have fun. So stop worrying about competition. There is no competition anymore. It's teamwork. Future industry, it's golden. I love it. January 2022 is gonna, as long as everybody stays calm during the holiday season, we're gonna kick off pretty good. So get your bootstraps ready. Here we go.
Amen. Amen to that.
Yeah, exactly.
Rob, thank you so much for joining with us, man. I really appreciate the insights and the talk, man. And taking the time, man. Obviously, you're on show, so I'm really glad you could do this with us and sit down here with us.
Yep, you're welcome.
Awesome, brother. See ya. So, everybody, thanks for joining me tonight. I know this is an hour-long conversation about competition, and we went all over the spectrum, I feel like. In final words to what Robert just said here, there are more and more companies that are partnering together. For example, you guys will see the sponsor for the AV podcast is virtual events. Virtual events, Geronimo CMP, CVH Visuals, AV Educate, and IAV, Mentality Visuals are all kind of under one umbrella right now in a warehouse because why not, right? We can share resources, we can share costs, and we can split that thing down. So that's something cool is happening in Miami right now with myself and these people we made. That's a partnership we fostered over the last year. Honestly, was not intended for that, but that's where it led to. So these moves are happening. People are making it happen, and this is a journey that I'm on that I'm giving to you guys and telling you about. So I really appreciate taking time here, and I'd love to hear your stories down the road in the comments here if you're watching this on the replay side. What have you seen competition wise? Are we still in that kind of I'm better than you mentality now, or are we really doing what Rob and Tim are here seeing is that we are now finally being able to be teams and work together and grow as individuals because of the healthy competitions we're having with each other, and not just this I want to do better than you mentality back and forth ego maniac kind of talks. Again, thank you for tuning in with me tonight. Thanks for being here. Thanks, Sean, Laura, Chris. Thanks, Rob. AV Educate's been commenting, that guy too. Let me see. Thanks, Ken, for coming in. I see Ken here a little bit. Am I missing anybody? I think I got everybody. Let me see. Double check. Rob, Christopher, Laura, Dan Hartley. Thanks for being here as well. Dan, I almost missed you. Yeah, Sean Michael Newman. Thanks everybody for being here again. We'll now big shout out to our sponsors, Virtual Events, and I will see you guys next week.